My lifelong best friend shattered our friendship at her baby shower by pulling a cruel prank, publicly claiming my husband was her baby's father, knowing about our struggles. It spiraled into her marriage ending, hateful messages, and an epic fallout that made me question everything about our relationship. Yesterday, my husband Nathan, 34M, and I, 31F, attended my best friend Julia's 31F baby shower. Julia and I go way back. We first met in college, were dorm roommates, and quickly became inseparable over our shared love for indie music. Those years were packed with concert trips, late-night study sessions, and endless inside jokes. Even after graduation, our paths diverged. I landed my dream job at a top law firm, while Julia shied away from the 9-to-5 and dove into social media work. Despite opposite schedules and lifestyles, we made a vow to spend every weekend together, hiking, brunching at new places, grabbing drinks, or just hanging out with movies and snacks. It was actually on one of these girls' nights out that I met Nathan. He was celebrating a friend's bachelor party, and when our eyes met across the bar, something just clicked. We always playfully debate who fell for the other first, but we both know it was mutual love at first sight. 5 years into marriage, we're happier than ever, and I can't thank Julia enough for convincing me to go out that night, or I'd have never met Nathan. Meanwhile, Julia stayed single for a few years, but eventually met her now husband Kevin, and this year marked their second wedding anniversary. About 3 months ago, Julia told me she was pregnant. I was over the moon for her. My best friend was finally starting her journey into motherhood, and I was so excited to support her along the way. It was a huge honor when Julia asked me to organize her baby shower, especially since she'd chosen me as her baby's godmother. We debated a bunch of themes, finally settling on yellow since it's Julia's favorite color. I had quite a bit of experience with event planning by now. I'd used the same caterer for my brother's wedding, so putting it all together felt like a breeze. On the big day, Nathan and I arrived early to double-check the setup. Kevin greeted us at the door, letting us know Julia was still getting ready upstairs. I noticed right away that the cake wasn't perfectly centered on the dessert table, just as Julia had insisted, so I made sure to fix it. Guests soon started arriving, and it was a joyful reunion with old college friends, so much catching up and laughter drifting through the house. Julia finally appeared, glowing in a bright yellow dress, basking in compliments and excitement for this new phase of her life. After everyone sat down for lunch, things seemed perfect. That is, until the unexpected happened. Without warning, Julia tapped her glass, clearing her throat for attention. She stood up and thanked everyone for being at her baby shower. Then she took a deep breath, looked around the room, and announced, "Kevin and I are so thrilled to welcome our first child. There's someone very special I have to thank for making this possible." I saw Kevin's brow furrow in confusion. Before anyone could react, Julia pointed at Nathan, my husband, and proclaimed with a grin, "Everyone, I'd like to introduce the real father of my baby." It felt like my heart stopped. I literally almost choked on my food. Total silence swept over the room, the kind that feels suffocating and endless. All eyes locked on Nathan and me, mouths hanging open. Nathan, the most introverted guy in the world, squeezed my hand under the table, his face pale and confused. I looked at him and saw he was as stunned as I was, then turned back to Julia, searching her face for some explanation. For context, Nathan and I have struggled with infertility for years. We've tried everything, gone through countless exhausting medical tests, and wrestled with the reality that having kids might never happen for us. Only a handful of people know about our situation. Close family, and of course, Julia. After making peace with this, we decided to pour ourselves into each other and our life together instead of constantly chasing something that brought us pain. So what Julia did, pointing to my husband and calling him her baby's father in front of a room full of people, was both a glaring lie and a punch to the gut. My eyes filled with tears, but I desperately tried not to let them fall. Suddenly, Julia burst out laughing, nudged Kevin, and waved a hand like it was all nothing. "Guys, relax. Just kidding. It's a prank for my Instagram. Cameras are everywhere. Can't wait to see your faces online." A handful of guests offered hesitant chuckles, but the air was thick with discomfort. Nathan sat frozen, face burning, still crushing my fingers in his hand. Kevin didn't react at all. He glared at his wife, visibly upset. He shot Nathan an apologetic look. Nathan and Kevin had grown pretty close over the years, and I could see on Kevin's face how angry and embarrassed he was for us. I didn't want to make a scene and ruin the rest of the party, so I swallowed my feelings as best I could. Julia swept right past the awkwardness, flitting between guests, beaming at her own cleverness, snapping selfies and videos for her followers. Nathan quietly told me he wanted to leave immediately, but I begged him to stay so we wouldn't give Julia even more fodder for her content. I promised to talk to her privately afterward. As the party went on, Kevin finally stood up during the gift exchange and quietly asked Julia to step outside. We could all overhear the argument. Kevin's voice rose, telling Julia he couldn't believe she would humiliate their closest friends and ruin their baby shower for a stupid prank. Julia kept brushing him off, claiming it was harmless, but Kevin wasn't buying it at all. At that point, Nathan got up and told me he'd wait in the car, unable to handle any more of the humiliation. My heart broke for him. He didn't deserve any of this, and neither did Kevin. After one last look around the tense, silent room, I slipped out too, not saying goodbye to Julia. I just couldn't, not after that. Once home, Nathan and I tried to process what had happened. Later that evening, Kevin texted us to apologize on Julia's behalf, saying he had no idea she'd planned something so cruel. We were grateful he reached out. The last thing we wanted was for this to destroy our friendship with him, but the drama from Julia wasn't over. The next morning, I woke up to a string of texts from her, insisting her prank was just a side effect of pregnancy stress and chasing social media likes. She couldn't understand why we were so upset and chastised me for leaving her party. She then asked me to drive her to a doctor's appointment like nothing happened. Trying to stay calm, I told her straight up that I didn't find her prank funny and that it was deeply disrespectful given what we've been through. I needed time away from her and wouldn't be taking her to her appointment. She lashed out, calling me a terrible friend for abandoning her at her most vulnerable moment. Her words hurt deeply. When Nathan read Julia's messages, he was as angry as I was and suggested we stop responding until she understood the seriousness of what she'd done. I sent one last message. I would only speak to her again if she apologized to both Nathan and me, and if she dared upload the prank video, I'd take legal action. Instead of apologizing, Julia doubled down, saying she did nothing wrong, and then accused me of being jealous of her pregnancy. After reading her reply, I was speechless. How could someone I'd loved as a sister for over 10 years truly believe I was jealous after all I had done to put together her dream baby shower? Her final message claimed she wouldn't upload the video, but also insisted I put aside my feelings and support her. She whined that Kevin hadn't come home and she needed me now more than ever. I broke down in tears. I hate confrontation, but I realized I couldn't go on like this. For my own mental health, I blocked her and didn't look back. So, AITA for not being there for my pregnant best friend after her prank and feeling relieved her husband walked out. Signed. Update 1. It's been a week, and things escalated way faster and further than I expected. First, I want to clarify, Julia was never someone who joked or pranked others, so her behavior at the shower truly blindsided me. I've known her since we were 20 and never saw her do anything remotely like this before. Turns out, Kevin was dead serious when he left her. Nathan got an update from him over the weekend. Kevin has already sought out a divorce lawyer. Since that infamous baby shower, Julia has bombarded Kevin with calls and texts, demanding he get over the incident and come home. He hasn't replied once. In a wild twist, she even accused him of having an affair with me, out of nowhere. Kevin is destroyed that their marriage is blowing up and told us she's changing into someone unrecognizable. Since I blocked Julia, she started messaging Nathan instead. One evening, he showed me a long, venomous text. Julia blamed him for ruining her friendship with me and said he wasn't much of a man since he couldn't get me pregnant. That's when my anger boiled over. Up till now, I tried to cut her slack, assuming hormones or pregnancy stress were at fault. But slandering Nathan like that was a step too far. So, I decided to hit back in my own way by withdrawing my support. Since I'd set up Julia's baby registry and spent hours helping her list the essentials, I had access and control over it. Julia had forced me to include hyper-expensive gifts, far beyond most guests' budgets, but I planned to buy the pricier items myself. After her disgusting messages about Nathan, I immediately canceled those orders and deleted the entire registry. She'd have to start a new one, alone. Additionally, I was coordinating finances with the caterer. I prepaid half as a surprise, but because of the mess with Julia, I'd forgotten to pay the balance. The caterer reached out for the rest of the payment. I explained what happened, and she graciously agreed to bill Julia directly, since her name was on the contract. For once, I felt a bitter sense of satisfaction not footing the bill for someone who deeply wounded us. Nathan found the whole thing oddly funny, like a bit of karmic payback. I would have considered forgiving Julia if she'd shown real remorse, but after her message to Nathan, I resolved to cut her off for good. Many of you in the comments pointed out how toxic she really was. On reflection, I realized there were red flags, times she put me down or made snide remarks, but I'd brushed them off. Now I see those moments with clearer eyes. In the end, I'm focusing on positivity and moving forward. Julia is out of my life, and I'm not letting her treatment stain my happiness. Update 2. Honestly, Julia's shamelessness knows no limits. A few days after sorting things with the caterer, she emailed me a tirade so nasty, my jaws dropped. She accused me of being cheap for not paying the entire catering bill, even though she knew I could supposedly afford it. She ranted that I'd always looked down on her for being less wealthy, and went as far as to say she was glad I'd never be pregnant. She threw every insult she could think of my way, calling me ugly, undeserving of Nathan, and even claiming Nathan only married me for my money. She blamed me for wrecking her marriage and unleashed an avalanche of profanity I'd never heard from her before. She ended by outright calling me a bitch. Nathan was stunned. Over the years, both of us have gone above and beyond for Julia, inviting her on trips, sometimes paying for her flights and hotels, supporting her after breakups, even loaning money to her family. She was treated like family herself. But this crossed every line. We invited Kevin over and showed him the hateful email. His response was pure disgust. He showed us a string of similar texts Julia had sent him, full of venom and baseless accusations of infidelity. He said his divorce lawyer advised him not to respond, just to save all the vile messages as evidence. After my previous posts, several people messaged me wondering if Julia could have neurological or mental health issues because of this drastic personality shift. Though Julia always had a temper and could be vulgar to others even in college, I'd never been her target until now. Nathan and I decided to reach out to Julia's parents. We told them every detail, showed them the texts and emails, and left it with them. If they felt it necessary, they could seek professional help for her. But I see no medical excuse for pure cruelty. No matter what, I have no intention of unblocking or responding to Julia. I went above and beyond for her. I will not let her drag me down with insults and disrespect. Life is better without her. Nathan and I are putting this chapter behind us and living our best life, traveling and cherishing our marriage. Update 3. A few months later. Things have played out as many of you predicted. Mark and Julia finalized their divorce. The case was messy, but Mark's lawyer and a prenup covered him. Both were required by the court to cooperate to co-parent their daughter. After her family got involved, at our urging, Julia moved back in with her parents. With no stable income, her social media work dried up, and a baby on the way, she simply couldn't manage on her own. We heard from mutual friends that after her stunt, most in our friend group cut contact entirely. When it came time for the baby's arrival, Mark waited to visit only until Julia was taken to the delivery room. He stayed to welcome their daughter and now shares supportive custody, paying his share and genuinely loving the child. Mark and Nathan regularly hang out, as ever, going golfing or out for drinks. Julia, meanwhile, was forced to settle her debt with the caterer after threats of legal action. She occasionally still emails me, continuing to blame me for ruining her life. Her parents took her to multiple doctors to rule out medical explanations. There are none. This is just who she's become. Nathan and I have not allowed any of this to poison our happiness. We're still prioritizing each other, never missing a Sunday date, and cherishing our marriage more deeply than ever. I remain thankful for our journey, no matter where it leads. If children are not in our story, we are still whole together. Finally, to all the couples reaching out about your struggles with infertility or feeling unseen, I see you, and it's okay. Life can surprise you in ways you never expect. Love your partner and carve your own happiness. That wraps up the whole story. This story is a stark reminder, but even the closest relationships can collapse when trust is shattered, and that setting boundaries with toxic behavior isn't just necessary, it's healthy. It also shows how one person's self-absorption can wreak havoc across an entire circle of loved ones. What do you think? Have you ever had a friend cross a line so badly that you had to walk away, even after years of history? Let me know how you handled it in the comments.